This is the commentated version of my segmented, no damage, no checkpoint playthrough of At Least There Was Čeda Čedović. An uncommented version is available in the description for those interested. If you haven't tried to play the game already, despite possessing the means to, please do that first. I'll be spoiling a decent amount of stuff that I think players would be best not to know for their first playthrough. I chose not to include cutscenes for this video as I think they're redundant and take too much time in this context. Likewise, I manually shortened every single load time down to just 1 second for brevity. If the word soup I gave earlier to describe the challenge is hard to parse, that's okay. Basically, there's a mode in the game that makes Čeda die if he ever gets hit, which I have on. To make it more interesting, I've dedicated myself to completing each level in a single segment, meaning that I can't use any checkpoints or pause the game. I also collect every floppy disk and golden sausage available. The word segmented simply means that the gameplay you see here is spliced together, only showing successful runs out of hours of raw footage, which is also available in the description. Additionally, this is decidedly not a speedrun. It's a challenge run, so I wasn't trying to optimize for time. In fact, as you'll see, I wasn't really optimizing much of anything for the first few worlds. Okay, so that's the end of the scripted commentary, at least for like over an hour. Yeah. I do have a lot of notes for the run, but in like a decent portion of cases, they're kind of notes for old plans that I had to scrap, so I don't know how useful they actually are. In any case, frankly, there's not much interesting that happens for the first like 3 worlds of the game. So whatever. Not a whole lot to talk about anyway. It kind of was. Okay, oh, sorry. Denise? I don't actually know. Said in chat, because I'm streaming this. I thought that was a recorded beforehand video for a second. And you're kind of right. It is pre-recorded, the first bit. Because like I already had the intro written out for when I was gonna make this more polished, and it feels reasonable to like have a decent version of that read out. It's like, yeah. But I don't have like the entire thing scripted or anything. I was never going to do that. I was gonna have other scripted parts, but yeah, I got sucked into a different project for all of July, so I did not have time to like fully follow through on that. I did work for a good bit of June on this project, but yeah. Oh well. There's also another part near the end that is pre-recorded as well. That'll probably be evident. When I recorded those parts, I didn't put very much effort into it. It was a pretty like a relatively careless little thing, which I think is justified. It's like whatever. It's gonna be surrounded by this kind of commentary anyway, so who cares? It's just that, especially in the case of the second one, there kind of needs to be a certain, like, consistent pace to it, in order for it to fit in. So it was important that I did that. Anyway, I guess the first trick I'm discussing is that with Mad Sorcerers, and also desktop aliens, when they spawn in, they have like a different movement mode. Like they have a certain movement mode that's kind of slow, and then after a little bit they start to track the player or the camera. Honestly, I don't remember which. A lot like faster. And you're able to kill them during the initial mode of movement because they move so slow. they're kind of just fine with like chilling out at the middle of the screen where you can get to them. So I use that there to kill it. It's not that like important really, but yeah. The second thing is that for a challenge like this, if you care about making a good watch, which I didn't really, evidently this early on, you want to route out power-ups kind of tightly. So like, you should really think about what power-ups you need and when you need them. And just skip all the ones that you don't need. This is especially important in this case because I wanted there, like, I didn't want to have, I wanted to make sure that every time I started a level, I got distracted by a chat message. Denise says they'll probably watch as a VOD later because Twitch lags for them. Fair enough. Anyway, yeah, I killed myself at the start of every single level for this, so that I started small, because trying to keep power-ups consistent would be extremely annoying, because every single time I reset a level, I would have to get my power-ups back somehow. And I also wanted, like, perfect continuity with the HUD, so the amount of like I can't save between levels, right? I can only rely on automatic saving, because if I spend floppy disks to save, the floppy disk count goes down. If I use teapots to buy floppy disks back, the teapot count goes down. If I collect more teapots to compensate for that, the score goes up. And without cheats, which we'll get to that like an hour from now, without cheats you can't really fix those problems. It's sort of just fundamental. So the easiest solution by far is to just start every single level small instead of trying to keep power-ups. At least if you're as picky about the video as me. So that's a general principle, right? The power-up management that I was talking about earlier. And that's especially important when you start every level small, because you can't just like bring in an axe and then use the axe for the whole level. You need to actually think about where you might get the axe if you need it. Or if you don't need it, just don't grab it at all. And I'm using the word need like pretty loosely. I'm not talking about what's strictly necessary to beat a level, because then you might not take power-ups in most cases. But if you don't take power-ups, it kind of sucks. It just makes things a lot harder, because you have no effective way to kill a bunch of enemies. For some, you have no way to kill them, period, where you otherwise would. And that's no good. Despite that being like a general principle of this kind of run, it really does not rear its head for a while. So, you know, largely I only spoke about that because there's not really anything else to speak about right now. Actually, kinda not true. Starting in World 2, I deleted World 1's raw footage before I could figure this out, so oops. But for World 2 and on, I have precise, precise times for how long it took me to beat a given level. With World 2 in particular, I accidentally had to do the whole thing twice, so I actually have 2 times, and I'll list those off. So for 2-1, that's Honey Cave. It took 11 minutes and 1 second on my first go around, and then 3 minutes and 38 seconds the second time. 2-2, which is Spin Fun, that's the last level, took 5 minutes and 18 seconds the first time, and 1 minute and 46 seconds the second time. Space Impact, I believe it's called, hopefully I didn't get that wrong. This level took 1 minute 42 seconds the first time. That might have been first try, because that's pretty short. And somehow it took me 9 minutes and 1 second the second time. All of the runs shown here are the second attempts. Second clears, whatever. So, I don't... I mean, I guess if you're curious, you could like go onto YouTube and see the... I don't know why I'm saying go onto YouTube. Like in the description of this, when I upload it to YouTube, I'll have a thingy in the description for like a link to the raw footage for each world. And I guess if you're curious, you could go like look at the original runs or something. I don't know. Anyway, the fact that I did this world twice means that the routes are like a little more refined than in World 1 and probably in World 3 as well. World 4 is where the game starts to get a little harder, which once things get hard, it kind of necessitates more care than I was putting in when it was easier. Which means that the routes end up being cleaner. But like they're probably not horrible here. They're still not great. I really wish from the beginning I just had the mindset of like doing a clean IL for each level. I considered like redoing some levels or even the whole thing up to a certain point, but like the amount of effort that would take just didn't really feel worth it. Especially after I got sucked into my other project for all of July. I was like, no, I'm not gonna redo this whole thing. Even though I probably could have, given that I finished that project on July 30th. So I had like about a week to record all this, and I think it took about a week to do the whole challenge the first time. But like whatever, you know? That's what I meant earlier when I said that, like, as you'll see, I wasn't optimizing much of anything. Because I just did not have significant standards. I sort of just did whatever, and then as the game demanded more from me, I cared more about doing a good job. So like half the game is just kinda sloppy and careless. I completely forgot to say how long Icy Tower took. 3 minutes and 16 seconds the first time, 6 minutes and 46 seconds the second time. Deep Abyss here took me 2 minutes and 34 seconds the first time, 4 minutes and 43 seconds the second time. The routing here is notably sloppy. I could have just went up for this floppy disk, but instead I went back down, which is like obviously slower. So that's kind of silly. I actually have in my notes for this level that my standards start really getting better on level 6-2, which is Desktop Wars. I'll complain about that later. But that was the hardest level up to that point in the game by like a long shot. So I started like doing extra well with my routing and such there. Although the last like 10, maybe up to 20 seconds of the level are kind of unpolished, mostly because I just wanted to be done with the thing. It's only like a minute long, but we'll get there. The barbarian fight, which is about to come up, took me a lot longer than anything else up to this point. 33 minutes and 13 seconds. That was split up into two, like, sessions, so to speak. Not literal play sessions. I did both of them in one sitting, like both runs of this entire world. Took me like an hour and a half total, by the way. But like, I was trying to practice the last, like the second and third phases of the fight, and I just, without thinking, actually killed the boss, which meant that like there was no way to pause and get out of it. The cutscene was already playing, so my only choices were to like redo the level and introduce HUD inconsistencies, because the game automatically saves whenever you kill a boss, or close the game and redo all of World 2, which of course is what I did. I believe it's probably possible to get an early hit on this phase, over, like, there are a bunch of bees flying and teapots, but I was not able to get it at all in insta-death mode. You can also get an earlier hit in the first phase, but I just happened to miss it on the successful attempt, so it's not here. Alright, so Castlevania 10 took me 6 minutes and 53 seconds. If you hold up as you do a dive while holding a mixtape, Čeda still gets the bounce off of the mixtape disc, but he also eats it at the same time. So I did that at the start. I assume it saves time, maybe it doesn't. I'm pretty sure you get cola out of that box if you are small, so it's important that I'm big, and I feel like eating a mixtape mid-air is like good, but I don't know. I don't know how like clean this route is. It's a bit weird to route out this level. I'm not even sure that I like did it for real when I was trying out some speedrunning stuff with this game. I might have just arbitrarily decided on a route and was like, yeah, this is probably good. I think I eat 2 discs for no reason in this level. Like I just did one, and near the start of the level, right before I get the axe, I also eat an extra one. Bizarre. Alright, so shift took me 6 minutes and 51 seconds. According to my notes, I think I exclusively used the CSGO knife, or maybe that's about one particular spot. I guess we'll see. It could be there's a section where there are a bunch of those like icy trash bug dudes that I forget the name of. And it might be, I might have been referring to that now that I think about it. Ideally I would have like gone under that gravity switcher, yes, and gotten the sausage up there early, but I missed my jump, so I had to go all the way down here to flip gravity, and then I should have gotten this one first, but I didn't realize for some reason that getting the one in this hole would like I didn't realize that it would force me to flip and again. I don't know. It's stuff like that that should prompt me to re-record a level like this, because like that's ridiculous. I shouldn't accept a performance like this, but I did anyway. To be honest, after the barbarian fight, I wasn't even sure that I would finish this challenge run because it just was not fun at all. Like the entire early games, just the first like 3 worlds probably just weren't fun for me. I'm not entirely sure why. It has been over 2 months since I recorded. I think the entire thing, maybe just most of it. So like I can't remember it that well, but yeah. Anyway, Cable Capers took me 5 minutes and 39 seconds. These times are, of course, like... I think I timed it from... Like I started on the first frame that I loaded into the level after killing myself the first time to get rid of my power-up. And then ended it the first frame that the loading screen shows up after the level. Just for reference on how, like, where I'm getting these times. There's a boom block down below. It's like you have to wait for the S switch to end in order to grab it. And for some reason, I once had it just fall and explode on its own without Čeda touching it at all. If somehow someone figured out how to get it to do that consistently, that would be good for 100% speedruns and nothing else. Because even if you do like a meme core speedrun where you need 45 sausages, this one's a colossal waste of time. Because you need to wait so long for the S switch. I think you can get all 45 sausages in 5 seconds or less of time loss over doing like a no collectible run of a given level. Like, I didn't test it super thoroughly, but like I'm pretty sure all 45 can be gotten with fewer than like 5 seconds of time loss. So like there's no reason you would ever go for that if you're just trying to go for meme core. Anyway, Aqua Energizer took me 2 minutes and 59 seconds. I do like this level, but the fact that it's paired up with Starship 11, in that these are the only two levels in the game that use this low gravity gimmick. I kind of hate it just through association because Starship 11 is like one of the 3 least enjoyable levels in the game, at least for me. It's bloated, it's way too long, I don't like it. So this kind of being, well, I already said that, but I guess I'll say it again because I started. This being associated with it just makes me kind of dislike this level whenever I get here in a playthrough. Because I'm like, ugh, I'm in the low gravity part. Wow, can't wait to play Starship 11. Also, inexplicably, I tried to talk to Ben there, which is, like, I failed because I accidentally dove upwards. But that's why that happened. And then I, like, went back up to him because I was like, oh no, I failed talking to Ben. But thankfully, before actually talking to him, I realized that I shouldn't be doing that. Not so thankfully, I didn't just restart the level and get a better take. Yeah, so Starship 11 took me 15 minutes and 46 seconds. Ugh, I was yawning. I woke up like an hour and a half ago, as of right now. So I'm gonna read my notes on this one instead of just rambling. Okay. Because Starship 11 is a bloated slog, it ends up inspiring resentment for this low gravity mechanic in me, and I'm always relieved when I'm past this level for that reason. Not helping matters is that the level gives off a facade that it's non-linear on a first playthrough, or at least it did for me, which does elicit a unique emotional experience for the game and that is valuable, but it also sucks and I don't like it. If I had to choose, I'd be more inclined to keep Starship 11 than Aqua Energizer, although truncating the former a tad wouldn't be out of the question. This level begrudgingly has its place. Yeah. I don't know how understandable that was, but essentially, while I think this level could be significantly shortened without any loss, the unique vibe that it has is probably worth keeping in, even though I prefer Aqua Energizer in every way. If one of them were to be cut, which I really do think that at least one of them should be cut. Because the early part of this game is too long. Or at least I find it is. It gets genuinely quite good later, but it feels like the first, like literally the first entire half of the game is sort of just dull and not that interesting. At least by comparison to how good it gets later. For some reason I was convinced that this jump was possible without using the spring. It might be, I don't know. But I just gave up on it, because like, whatever. I try to avoid checkpoints where possible. Sometimes I just don't like think about it and grab one. Other times I just like do it anyway. There might be an instance in this where I grab a checkpoint specifically for power-up routing. I'm not actually sure. That seems unlikely, but it might happen. And occasionally it's just like unavoidable. You have to pick it up. That happens in... I know what happens in 6-4, Around the World in 80 Seconds. Which I will most definitely talk about when it happens. But yeah. I thought it would be fun to avoid them when possible. So I generally kind of try. So, Golimar here took me 1 minute and 55 seconds. I wouldn't be surprised if that was first try. I believe that I took the pepper here. I might have taken the pepper here because you need it to get an axe later on. But that might not be true. I might have just not tried. I don't know. Anyway, because of how dull the, first almost half of the game is, and especially how much of a slog Starship 11 is, it kind of makes Shareware City, World 4, feel a lot more, interesting. It feels like a big step up in quality over what came before. Also, if it wasn't evident just then, you don't actually need to hit IMJ with the POW, or the boom block rather, in order to damage him. It just needs to detonate at all, so it can be faster to just pick the nearest wall, if there is a nearest wall, and chuck it at that instead. That might only be relevant for the second one, I'm not sure. Alright. Building Panic, I think this is called, took me 17 minutes and 29 seconds. So that's the longest regular level since Starship 11, I guess. But as I've complained about, that's a boring slog of a level, so I'm not sure that it really counts that much, because other levels are more like the length of this one. Anyway. Cleaner routing kind of starts here, because this level proved to be fairly difficult. I mean, evidently, given how long it took me, I guess. I'm not sure there's a whole lot to say on this level. I feel like if you pay close attention, it should be noticeably cleaner. I'm not paying close attention because I was looking at my notes and trying to think about what to say. So, yeah. This whole section's kind of overly perilous, I find. I don't know, it's a bit much. I've got nothing else to say. I probably shouldn't say something like that, because that felt like void of value, but I don't know. Right, I went out of my way to get like a regular goal with the soccer ball there, or the football. I tried to do that on every single level, but I think I missed it on like Desktop Wars or something, and I just didn't care. So I like, every single level up to a point has a full goal like that. I don't remember when that stops. Anyway, Bubble Bobble Nostalgia took me 12 minutes and 44 seconds. The song for this level in the Čeda soundtrack release is called My Hell, and this is a nod to it being Leather's, I think, least favorite song from the Mario Bama soundtrack. Maybe just one of them, not sure. Yeah, it's a nod to that, but that's not actually what it was called for the Mario Bama soundtrack. Originally it was called Gimme Dat, which I think raises a question in a very like no harm was done in this case, because Mario Bama song titles are largely just shitposts. So like I don't think there's sacred authorial intent buried in them. But it does raise a question of like, if it's, I guess, artistically okay to change titles that someone else gave their own work towards your own ends. And now, for all I know, Harvey Rothman could have been the one to rename it, and like the plenty of other tracks that also got renamed, or maybe he like signed off on them, or maybe he truly didn't know and this was entirely just like an independent decision from Leather and Microwave. I have no idea. I don't think it's like a crime in this case. In fact, if it was gonna happen with any piece of art, it's probably best that it's a case like this, where the titles are so shitposty. It still does, like... it still does raise an interesting question though, I think. Also, I played the end with those ice block things very safely, because if you try and rush through it by just spamming the run button to grab and throw them instantly, there's a risk of deleting yourself and having it automatically restart the level. So that axe block always gives you an axe even if you're small, as you just saw, but there's a hidden pepper block to the left which is state dependent. So if you're small, it gives you cola. Not that that matters for this, of course, but it's kind of just weird. And I would always get the axe first and get the pepper second when I was going through this on my first playthrough. Just so I had two, like, second stage power-ups. Also, this stage took me 6 minutes and 58 seconds. I forgot to say that. I took the ending of this level pretty slow, down here, because, it just feels really dangerous. So like I wasn't gonna risk things by going through with the axe or anything. I got the burrick, I started floating and making absolutely sure that I didn't die. Which I don't blame myself for. It's probably the right decision. There's a jump at the start of the next level, Snoopy 1.0, to get to the sausage. I didn't actually know about this until Leather Ice Cream pointed it out in like a developer playthrough that he and Microwave did. You can just like bounce off these enemies and it just works out. Also, I move in waves to spawn these like with gaps in between them, because I believe that if you just keep running, then they all kind of stream in very quickly. I got that checkpoint by accident, of course. They all stream in very quickly, so there are no gaps to jump safely. That's why I kind of wait around for a second after jumping over each little burst of them. This level took 5 minutes and 38 seconds to complete. And it's worth noting that unless I'm misremembering, I hope I'm not. Wait, I think I have the... Okay, never mind. I don't have what I thought I had written down. I was wrong. Yeah, so unless I'm mistaken, I believe that this world, like spliced together like this, is the longest world in the game, if you exclude 7-7, of course. And that's assuming like more perfect play than I gave, which I think speaks to an interesting evolution in the level design, where coming out of World 3 they were kind of making levels like bigger and longer, a bit more bloated, but then starting in like World 5, generally speaking, it kind of gets more succinct. Things don't take quite as long. The levels are just more focused and compact, which is good. I feel like this is a very reasonable evolution of level design skill, where, like, yeah, it makes sense that as you kind of get the hang of designing levels, they would start to get longer. But then once you super got the hang of it, they would start getting shorter, because, like, at first you're just figuring out how to, like, experiment with mechanics and use them in fun ways at all. And so you kind of just put things together with a lot less regard than if you're more skilled at it, I guess. But then, like, after enough time, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a very regular progression of abilities. Anyway, Sven's Woe took me 7 minutes and 16 seconds. I use a route that I came up with years ago in order to make getting the second and third sausages faster and easier. The problem is that I played the level absolutely atrociously, and for some reason I was just like, yep, good enough. I think it might be the performance that I'm least happy about. Like there, I went to dive through the bee, realized I needed the axe to do that, got the axe, and then just decided that I would go above instead, which took me over here to the third sausage. So I go get the third sausage early. For like half a second there, I was like, well, this is dumb, I should just go get the first sausage, the second sausage rather, before this one. But then I'm like, well, I'm already here, so it's like, I might as well. That should have been the moment where I reset the level and did it well, but instead I just continued. You can see how helpful the burek is in collecting that sausage. Yeah. So like that's the basic idea. It just I wish I performed it well. I wish I died right there as well. I almost did, but unfortunately I survived. Oh well. The rest of the level's unremarkable. Just kind of playing it. I don't know. I didn't know that this power-up existed. I didn't mean to like pick it up or anything. Or I might have meant to pick it up, I have no idea. In any case, I didn't know that that block was there. Okay, Murphy's Revenge took me 27 minutes flat. If you hit Murphy with two like exploding floppy disks during the level section, then you skip the first phase. If you hit him with a third, then you skip the second phase. I hit him with two during an earlier attempt, and it didn't, like, it only skipped the first phase, so I was like, oh okay, I guess you can only skip the first phase then. So this time I only went for one hit, which doesn't skip anything. So that just so happens to be in the successful attempt, and I think it's kind of fine from a certain perspective, because like, sure, you know, I show the whole fight, why not? But also it is less efficient, because it would have taken significantly less time to get that that second hit than not. Hello, Beth. Yeah, so regarding like the soundtrack of this game, mostly it's done by Harvey Rothman. Sometimes Harvey's tracks were edited a little bit by Microwave, or MG Zone as he's credited in the game, I believe. 3D Man is a good example of him like editing an existing track without really adding anything, because he kind of truncated the less like active parts from earlier in the track, so that it kind of starts more intense, which makes sense for its level around the world in 80 seconds. Generally though, like, okay, there's one track by Moodeth in the soundtrack as well, that's for Go Animosity. It's also called Go Animosity. But there are some by Microwave as well, just like from the ground up. Or kind of, anyway. Not like related to Harvey's work, I guess is what I mean. And generally I find that his style is more so on the side of like straightforward mashups, and or like sparse arrangements. They don't sound quite so full as Harvey's, I think. I'm not very good with like music production terms and such, so I have some trouble identifying it. But like Harvey's compositions feel more lively, and I get the impression that they're much more original composition than mashup. Even if they use even if they are mashup-y sometimes and use a bunch of samples, they sound mostly just like their original compositions to me. And so this kind of, like, it creates a divide between their styles, which I find a little bit stark. In a case like Murphy's Revenge, I think it works because it creates, like, a unique kind of oppressive, like, desolate almost atmosphere. Whereas, like, 80% of Harvey's work is just house music. It gets pretty repetitive, which I will address later. Even though generally I prefer his work. I don't know, it's just moody in that case and it works well. Exodus to Death here took me 3 minutes flat. The right slash block there has a brick, which I got, and the left has an axe. Both are state dependent, so I get the axe one first for cola, so that I can use the brick. Getting the halva back there is kind of unnecessary, but like, whatever. I spent 3 minutes on this. Who cares? I should have gone for the floppy disk first. It almost feels like I forgot about it. Which is kind of silly. I don't think I, like, noticed that until now. But yeah, I should have, like, it's not even in my notes that I did that in, like, blatantly the wrong order. I never realized that there's, like, a hidden path. What hidden path? Okay. There's a secret path that you can take with the barrack, kind of up the exterior of this little section. You can see a platform for it there, and you drop down right where those darker tiles were above Čeda. I just never noticed it, so I don't use it. Happens. Call of Cthulhu took me 20 minutes and 30 seconds. It's quite a difficult level. There are several, like, difficulty spikes in this game, and I tend to enjoy them, or I tended to enjoy them on my first playthrough. Difficulty doesn't mean much to me anymore, because I'm so, like, accustomed to the game. But yeah, I enjoyed the difficulty spikes because it kind of felt like comfort was never that persistent. Like, I don't know, the difficulty curve just worked really well for me because I was always, or at least almost always, being challenged a decent bit in what felt like a nice fun degree of challenge. So even for something like this, which did get a bit frustrating because it's so difficult, ultimately I was kind of thankful for it. It's pretty rough that this, like, sausage gauntlet comes immediately after the checkpoint, and then, like, one of the last jumps in the level after all of this is so difficult. But I guess you're not really supposed to 100% the levels the first time you go through them. So that was sort of on me. But yeah, the jump onto that purple moving platform, there's like an easier way to do it. I didn't know that. It's very rough. Eyeless took me 2 minutes flat. And I don't have much to say about it. Yeah. I should say that if anyone's in chat for this, if you have like questions or such, please ask them. Because there's a decent amount of downtime otherwise. Because like, I don't know, I did this in 2 minutes. There isn't like routing intricacy here, really. I just played the level. I probably got it like second try or something. If not first try, but I don't know. I feel like I remember resetting at least once. But then it's also been 2 months. So like really I have no idea. Yeah, okay. So 116 I definitely did die at least once. Apostrophe the took me 11 minutes and 7 seconds. This is one of my favorite levels in the game because it is just like extremely... It's so like atmospheric just all of the sudden compared to everything else in the game, at least up to this point. Although I think just everything else in the game, period. So it sticks out a lot, and it kind of is puzzly in a way that other levels aren't, in an interesting but not that obtrusive way for those who aren't into this sort of thing, which I am, so I wouldn't have minded it being more obtrusive, so to speak. So yeah, very good level. I know Microwave made this one, or at least I think Microwave did. There's also something to be said for... never mind, actually, I talk about that later. Up, up, down 9, 9, down 6, up 9, 6, my beloved. I think the princess's AI might be based on the Mad Sorceress, because it's surprisingly easy to get hit by her body, like when she first starts chasing you. But then after a bit, it seems like she enters a tighter tracking mode, similar to the Mad Sorcerer and Desktop Alien. So I kind of have a hunch that she's based on that. Also, the L knife is a very cool and fun power-up. I very much like it. I think generally all of the power-ups are like pretty good, except for the Pepper Shaker, which is like whatever, it's funny Mario fire. It's fine. The next sausage I collect is the worst one in the game, because it requires a power-up that is not in the level. It's less bad now because in version 1.1 they added a shop at the Poor 4 apartment where you can just buy an L knife. But before then you had to bring the L knife in from 'Z. So this is the only time in the game where I don't just kill myself upon entering the level. And I did get it first try, thankfully. It's especially rough because like the second sausage is kind of finicky. Like it's not that difficult to lose one's power up. Also I played this like absurdly safely because I only had one try. Anyway, it's pretty easy to get hit here and like lose the Burak, which means that you can't get this sausage because the Burak is required for it. It is very rough. Very like I don't mean like rough in a design sense there. I think the first sausage requiring the L knife, which is not accessible here, is rough. But that's not like the second one being difficult is fine on its own. It's just kind of bad in conjunction with the first sausage. At least when you're trying to collect them all in one go, which I don't know that that's necessarily like the point, so from a casual standpoint, maybe it's fine, I don't know. Anyway, I was never gonna have like particularly good performance on this level due to the fact that I had to first try it. And also the fact that I didn't do any like practice of any of these levels before I got to them in the challenge run. Like I could have practiced the rest of the level decently heavily and then done it in the challenge, and it would have been cleaner, I'm sure, but I didn't do that, so whatever. Lizard Man took 3 minutes and 14 seconds. That's pretty short, given how, like, difficult the Sonic phase is. Sonic, I don't know, whatever he's called. The Audino phase is pretty cool, because like it actually feels like a decent fight, and if you know how to do it, you can like one cycle it like that. A nice little quick kill for the fans. It looks very clean. It probably also seems kind of impressive, although really it's not that impressive. That this wasn't a completely perfect fight does not really bother me. I'm okay with missing one hit on the Sonic phase there, because the Sonic phase sucks. So, like, I did not want to redo it unnecessarily. Stick figures on crack took me 3 minutes and 51 seconds. I don't know that there's a whole lot to say about it, to be honest. I guess I should say, with the dive, if you're running and do a jump, and you want to do a dive, but you would prefer that it's shorter, you can just hold neutral for like a quick moment and press dive, and it'll give you what I call a short dive every single time. And the consistency that short dives add to doing jumps is like invaluable, because otherwise the dive feels like really unpredictable and unwieldy. The ability and like the knowledge of short dives and the ability to do them is just very useful in moving Čeda around precisely. And I've probably used it like several times already in the run, and I know for a fact that there are more instances coming up. I'm not entirely sure when, but I mean, it's not unlikely that it happens in this level. Almost definitely within the next few. Sorry for my creaky chair. It's so sad. I would be streaming this in the game's native resolution, and I would also upload it to YouTube that way. If it weren't for the fact that YouTube doesn't allow arbitrary vertical resolution, so 1536 by 864, which is what the game runs at, would get converted into 1280 by 720. Thanks, YouTube. So I just figure it's best to do it in 1080p, like whatever. So Desktop Wars, my least favorite level in the game, took me 56 minutes and 1 second. Took me an entire goddamn fucking hour for this 1 minute level. And I hate it. The route's generally really clean though. Power-up usage is very deliberate. Like here it's useful for killing those guys of course, but also this alien. And several more enemies like this stick figure guy, I forget what they're called. Pogo stick figure, I don't know, whatever. I do very like deliberate movements to get the first sausage. Here I use the cape because it makes this sausage easier because I can like slow float down to it. Back to the pepper shaker so that for this section I can just hold jump without slowing my fall down, which makes dealing with the bees easier. And then just on a whim, literally only in this attempt, I decided, okay, what if I just try and dive over this section because it's so goddamn horrible? And it happened to work out. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I wait there for the guy to go away, and then I very carefully switch back to the pepper shaker so that these guys don't spawn early and kill me. And I fly over there so that I don't have to like actually deal with the ending section, because I did not want to take any risks at this point. Again, this took me an hour. I really didn't want to die. GTA Myths took me 25 minutes and 45 seconds. And it is so much more enjoyable than Desktop Wars. Because it's actually a fun level. So good job to GTA Myths. There's nothing too special to say about this one. I kind of just play cleanly overall. There's really just like nothing to say about this. Genuinely, I would encourage trying this challenge for those interested on at least some of the levels. I do not recommend it for Desktop Wars. Honestly, unless you're like interested in the idea of doing them particularly cleanly, I wouldn't recommend it for earlier levels either. But levels like this do pose like an interesting and enjoyable challenge, I find. To do it without taking damage or using checkpoints. So, like, earnest recommendation for stuff like this. And for 6-4, around the world in 80 seconds, if you're the type to enjoy that level, which I most definitely am. I very much like this level, and even though I was getting worn a little thin by the end, that's kind of expected when you play the same level for an hour, 7 minutes, and 39 seconds in one sitting with like no breaks. I think literally no breaks, actually. I do very specific movement for the sausage here. I kind of forgot to explain that just then. Oops. I'll read what I wrote anyway. I do very specific movement around the balloon platforms for this first sausage. Land on a pipe next to the one that lifts up, hesitate a slight bit, then do a full jump to land on it. This passes enough time that the saw moving around the sausage is generally avoidable by the time the platform reaches its peak. Avoiding that checkpoint just then that I got is infeasible without slowing down, and you do not have enough time to justify slowing down. I don't need the Burek anymore, so I discard it, and killing that Shadow Man is important because he does pose a threat if you don't. Yeah, I also let myself fall down onto a conveyor belt right before the Burek checkpoint. That's another way to like time the cycles better, because it lets the fire bars rotate a little more than if you just go in at full speed. There aren't a bunch of setups for the tower part of this level, so I don't have as much to talk about. Yeah. Avoiding that checkpoint kind of sucks as well. So I just didn't bother. In fact, maybe it's not even possible, I don't know. Yeah, I was like kind of grinning like when I first started doing this level, because it's just a lot of fun, and I hadn't played the game in a while really. A very good level. It's such a like unrelenting auto-scroller. I love this level as an example of what auto-scrollers can be, instead of their reputation as being like slow, boring pieces of garbage. Which elsewhere is just fixed in this game, because if you go far enough relative to the screen in an auto-scroller, it just scrolls ahead, which is what a lot of games should do. I briefly paused there to let the guy step to the side so that I can safely jump behind him at the start of the level there. Also, this level, Counter-Strike 1.6, took me 12 minutes and 47 seconds. There's not really much to say about it. I think generally it's pretty clean, at least for the first part. But yeah, I think to memory actually the second half is a bit more on the sloppy side, but The first bit's clean. Although there's still like 26 minutes left of this, I think. Something like that. I might be doing the math wrong. I'm sure I can be forgiven for taking this safely. Yeah. I don't know, really not much to say here. Oh, that dive was completely accidental. Sometimes I just accidentally press the key. Because my hoof bit just likes doing that. I don't know. It's the same deal with my mouse, like I accidentally right click all the time. Because I guess I just put slightly too much pressure on the right mouse button. I don't know. I kind of just reacted to all those enemies at the end, and I'm glad that I got through. It would have been very easy to react slightly late, like even 5 frames later on that Fugo probably would have gotten me killed. Go Animosity took me 2 hours and 22 minutes and 9 seconds. I enter it with 4 4s in my score, which I think is kind of amusing. Most of my resets of this boss had me sit through like all of the cutscenes again, at least after you jump into the hole with after Nuclear Throne. But it just so happens that my successful attempt was a death during the first phase, which meant that I was down to just reset and not do all that again. Which means that there's no cutscene here, but I watched it dozens of times. And respawning here also let me show off that if you press the button to like drop your power up early enough, it drops in like the middle of the screen instead of at the top, which is kind of amusing a little bit. I do specific strategies for this, but like, whatever. There's a safe spot if you stand under the 2 digits of the floppy disk count if you have the close HUD turned on for that final skull attack in the last phase. Here I generally go for the right hand, or that I autopiloted that in completely the wrong way. I kill one hand at a time because if you damage both of them before killing one, then both of the saws are out and they both do the blood attack, which is not ideal. It just kind of makes things harder. Also, the first saw always goes left when it spawns and the second always goes right. I'm really glad that that's consistent. This was probably the phase I died on the most in this fight. I think it's the hardest. Yeah. This is easy, just stack 2 blocks and then jump up to them. It's whatever. So in the meantime, I'm gonna explain some stuff. In version 1.1, which I believe is the version on itch.io, there's a soft lock in the first cutscene, or I guess the second cutscene technically, like right after you kill Nuclear Throne. If you spam fast enough or spam in a certain way or just something goes wrong, it just soft locks you. You can't pause because it thinks it's in a cutscene. You can't use cheats because you need to pause to use cheats. And that happened like 2.5 hours or something. Maybe it was 3 hours, I'm not sure, into my session of playing this world. And if you remember from earlier, I could not save mid-world without messing my HUD up. So when it soft-locked the first time while I was trying to beat this boss, there was palpable dread involved. Thankfully, I did think to use cheats, and it just so happens that you can give yourself an arbitrary amount of score, and an arbitrary amount of like floppy disks and whatever. So what I did was I just like what I did was sorry. Apparently I'm having trouble speaking right now. What I did was I just completed the levels with checkpoints, and like got all the sausages and whatever again. And then I used cheats to get my HUD all to the right values and stuff, and just continued doing Go Animosity from there. I think I might have soft-locked one more time, but I was able to pause and like make a save without affecting the HUD just before fighting Mega Satan again, so it wasn't really a big deal. I'm just kind of getting the blue apple things to go to the meme core, yeah, whatever. So, Bitchin' took me 34 minutes and 27 seconds. And because there are no floppy disks or sausages in any of these levels anymore, that means that they're kind of just more akin to like speedruns at this point. Because I don't need to like go out of my way to collect stuff. I just kind of do the levels without getting hit pretty much just as fast as possible. That was my goal, more or less, by this point in the run. And I think I played them pretty well overall. The least remarkable is Moppa Wars, because you don't have power-ups for that anyway. So like, whatever. But all the others are pretty good. This challenge really got me to improve with lasers, by the way. So at the start of Sparta-Man, the next level, there's a stack of floppy disks that you kind of just have to like throw away in order to proceed. If you turn around without moving much at all, like if you turn around while you're still close enough to them, spamming run will grab and then instantly throw all of them, just like that, without having to turn around at all. So I would just reset until I got that to make it faster. Here I do something kind of silly and fun where I use this mixtape. I accidentally bounced on it, unlucky. I use this mixtape to get through that passage, but I also spin it so that, because like spinning it back into the top block is pretty quick, and it also means that I don't have to crouch under a block, I can just run through. Not sure if that's actually faster, probably like is a completely insignificant time difference between doing that or just crouching. But I don't know, it seemed fancy and clean, so I did it. I'm not sure that you can get past that razor blade while it's moving away from you, so I don't even try. I guess I was like pretty unhappy with how the end of that level went, like that last little room, because apparently according to my notes, which these were the The meme core was the only instance where I wrote notes immediately after doing the levels. In my notes I said that I considered resetting, but I chose not to. So like, eh.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
Mappa Wars took me 10 minutes and 51 seconds. And I don't think I said Spider-Man's length, so that was 16 minutes and 8 seconds. Not length, but like how long it took me to get a successful attempt. I do this little risky dive just because it skips a bunch of the level, and I specifically land on the ground next to the checkpoint in order to do the jump because first of all, it was easier to practice from there, from the checkpoint, or like it was quicker to, so it was just like an easier reference to use. And second of all, with less vertical, like with less falling speed, a jump like that is more lenient. It might be frame perfect either way, I don't really know. But in theory, if you have less falling speed, then there's less chance that like, if you have less falling speed, then there's a higher chance that you'll have at least 2 frames where it's possible to dive through, is the idea. Suicide Mouse took me 30 minutes and 20 seconds. I hit the power-up blocks in this order to get an axe, because if you do it in the other order, then you get Spooky Pepper Shaker, which is not as useful. It's never as useful, because the axe is just better. That's maybe not true. Anyway, I tried to optimize this slightly by spinning the axe back towards the bricks. I accidentally spun it like up onto the cheese blocks, which might have helped me, I'm not really sure. You can just skip the first spring there, I forgot to do that, oh well. Also, it's totally safe to just dive here because of the slight forward momentum that you have after hitting a wall with a dive. Easier than like trying to deal with bouncing on the bees and stuff. The end of this level is like really daunting, but if you just kind of jump like that and spin, it's completely trivial. You basically can't die. SpongeBob Saw took me 24 minutes and 6 seconds. This one is like the purest example of me just speedrunning the level. I stay small for the entire thing, and I just play it very cleanly and well. And it was fun. It was fun to grind this out. Getting the second hidden block there is useless because it's at the same height as the platform that you're trying to get to anyway, so I just don't bother with it. And of course you can just run under those autos, evil autos, whatever. I could not do this in a faster way without getting hurt, so I sort of just wait for that purple haze a little bit. Oh well. Also you can like do that. You can just jump over those spaceships, starships, whatever they are, instead of waiting for them. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I guess that wasn't so clean. Oh well. Okay, the Tesla's kind of dense, so hopefully I can do this well. So first of all, just to get it out of the way, for the second phase of Mario Obama, the chase part, I expected it to be a lot harder than it is, but it's actually not that bad. Like yeah, it's pretty consistent if you just practice it a bit. I remember in my first playthrough, I was unreasonably frustrated by it, which I think was mostly due to the like precise throw that you have to do with the mixtape, or like not precise, but it's just, it was especially finicky at the time because if you repressed run immediately, you would just kill the mixtape with your axe. It's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, test level took me 36 minutes 59 seconds. I abuse Mario Obama's AI for this pepper shaker phase, since he always dives away from you if you're slightly above him, and repeatedly doing that pushes him into a corner where it's trivial to hit him. The relatively bright and saturated slash block I'm standing on right there is one that he always dashes to, so I just use it as a visual cue. Somehow I like pass through unscathed, pass through Mario Obama unscathed during that CSGO knife section, which is kind of weird. Also, I think the axe attack is affected by Cheda's positioning. It's not like solely just where Mario Obama starts that determines where he goes. So, unless you do unless it's the first phase that you get, I don't think there's a consistent way to do that safely. So I sort of just got lucky in that attempt, which yeah, fair enough. I think I got to this part like 2 or 3 times before beating it, which again, not as bad as I expected. It's surprisingly consistent. Also, right at the end of the level, Mario Obama goes to hit the S switch, and you have to hit a block to kill him there. Technically you can hit the block after he hits the S switch and then dive up through the blocks that are now gone, but there are hidden blocks that prevent you from doing anything with that. I've tried to make an analysis of this game 4, arguably 5 times, and all of them failed. Now, having completed a healthily written video on the Big Catch Tacklebox, another free, fantastic game that you should play, wink wink, I think I can see the problem for what it is. I barely have anything substantial to say about Čeda. I simply had a lot more to comment on with Hypnagogia and Tacklebox, and so those actually became videos. I do have a few points to make with Čeda, but it's so minute an amount that it can't coalesce into an analysis proper, just some disparate thoughts. I clearly care about this game, but I can't force that sort of video, and I think I've come to terms with that. A point that I wanted to make was that Čeda is a game filled with earnest care, both for its more original aspects in the Poor 4 and remnants of Mario Obama, but also reverence for its obscure source material. This is easily spun into a lame, exaggerated video essay thesis, but I'm not interested in doing that. I'm not interested in spewing borderline misinformation about how Čeda is revolutionarily ironic, because it simply isn't some earth-shattering masterpiece hidden gem. It's a good-ass game with a special aesthetic and premise, and that shouldn't be overstated just as it shouldn't be taken for granted. That's not to say you can't adore the game to bits, just... Look, I have a bone to pick with video essays, don't take it personally. And even its aesthetic isn't without significant fault. The visuals don't give that strong an impression for a while because taking from obscure computer games is still just using computer game environments and visuals. Starting in Spooky Hill, the chaos and absurdity starts to truly manifest, at least for me, because playing creepypasta levels just hits different. That continues with Final World since it largely uses videos instead of games, and Memecore is good in that regard too, largely owing to its variety in music. Before the last 3/7 of the game, little sticks out in any real way. Same trend for the music. Most abrasive, obnoxious, and/or unique tracks are saved for late in the game, which makes those levels more memorable at the expense of making earlier ones yet more forgettable. Add on to that the linear development of the game, meaning that level design becomes more deft as it goes on, and how unwieldy Čeda's acceleration is at first. It's a poor first impression compared to how good the game gets. The levels themselves are largely built well, and the game's infinite lives mode and its handling of auto-scrollers are great. But then the punishing and unique save system was wasted, built for a game over that the devs backtracked on and leaving a cumbersome and pointless save mechanic in its wake. Infinite lives should have given infinite saves, and getting a game over should have reverted the player to the previous save, just as it was originally planned. At the very least, the remaining text in the game that suggests it still works that way should have been changed. Okay, so that was the second pre-recorded part, of course. Good time for a break for me. It should come as no surprise, probably, that I'm doing 7-7 for this. I even streamed my attempts for it, so it may literally have already been known. But yeah, I already did 7-7 single segment like a week after release, and the levels changed since then, but like, I figured it was... it only made sense, because like the inspiration for this challenge was twofold. First is that I really like the Nintendo 64 Zelda LOTADs done by like Kaztalek and such. Those are great. So I kind of just wanted to do a challenge run of some sort. But also, I feel like the logical next step for someone who has done 7-7 single segment and has done a full insta-death mode playthrough is to do the entire game insta-death single segment. Or like each... no checkpoints is a better way to say that. So that's kind of why I did this challenge. And in that sense, it only really makes sense to do this again, especially since the level has been updated with an earlier checkpoint. I'm already past the part that... well, the 2 parts got changed, actually. Brown bricks up here is a lot easier than before, thankfully. It's kind of hard to talk about like the strats I use because it's pretty much constant that I'm using some sort of like setup or whatever. So I'm not even gonna try. Yeah, though, it made perfect sense to do this again for this challenge, and it took me 4 hours, 47 minutes, and 9 seconds. Yeah. So, the reason that I had like a scripted section over the credits with some random music is mostly because, first of all, I thought it would be... like, I did the normal credits like joke thing with the Hypnagogia New Mall track. And then I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to do one for the true credits as well. And in trying to choose a song for it, I landed on Claire's Idea of Fun from Super Lesbian Animal RPG, just because the start of it seemed like a funny juxtaposition to Mario Obama fucking dying. But then I realized that the music is kind of like extremely tonally appropriate to the game at large, because it's kind of silly on the surface, but or like at first anyway, but then it gets more like, I guess, emotional and earnest later on, in that I feel like that's supposed to represent the character whose theme it is, because she like has on the surface she's all like silly, wacky, whatever, but it's like whatever underlying seriousness, that kind of thing. I don't I'm not saying this because I think she's like a brilliantly written character. There's a parallel here, and I thought that was interesting, and I wouldn't have said this explicitly if the more effortful like version of this project had been completed. I would just kind of let it stand on its own as something for other people to figure out. But this video isn't what I thought it, or what I guess hoped it would end up being. I thought that I was gonna have like a whole little section there in the credits where I spoke about what the game means to me and probably to the developers and such. But instead it ended up mostly being me just stating very succinctly, like, clearly I care about this game, I've tried to make stuff on it several times, but like I just don't have enough to say, and then listing pretty much everything I have to say. At least that is substantive. That was an accidental dive there, by the way. I died once in this grind at the ending section. I didn't know where the Ethernet climber was gonna throw its hammers. And I just panicked and died. That hurt. I think the grind would have been like an hour or two shorter if I beat it on that attempt. Anyway, yeah, the challenge is over. I'm just heading over to the Poor 4 apartment to show that I did all the levels, like in Instadeath mode. The times for World 6 aren't going to be accurate minus Mega Satan due to the stuff I discussed earlier where I soft locked. So unfortunately, just ignore those. They're not reliable. But everything else is right. So, yeah. Happy 4th anniversary to At Least There's Čedović. And thank you, Leather and Michael Wave, for making this game. It's very good.